China's misinformation propaganda campaign against the USA. Now, you would think that this propaganda would come from the leader himself, Xi Jinping. Well, he doesn't make a lot of public appearances, or the two usual suspects from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which you can see on the screen now. But they do employ a lot, and I mean a lot of foreign people who live in China. Now, some of the faces you may have seen before, some of the faces are relatively new. Now, let's go to the first one, a guy called Jason who lives in Beijing. I'm not too sure what he does, but quite often he is an up-and-coming kind of propagandist who would just dispel wrong misinformation because the government near enough order him to do and pay him a very high wage to do so. Otherwise, think about it. Why would you do it? Yeah, because the evidence that they provide is not the whole evidence, it's not the whole truth, it's just one side of the story, and it's never two sides of the story. This guy posted an article like this. Clues you're reading paid anti-China propaganda or an ignoramus. Well, first of all, that's really impolite, saying that most of the world, apart from the people and the government of China, are not ignoramus. So they say CCP. Why can't you say CCP? It's always been the CCP. You don't have to believe me. Just go to a website like way back, type it in, and you can say even far back as 2016, the CCP were calling it themselves the CCP. It's only recently they changed to CPC, because when you Google CCP, you would have all the bad stuff. But when you Google CPC, it would be all the good stuff. That's why people would say it. Obsessed with Winnie the Pooh is number 2. Why can't Xi Jinping have a lovable character? He just doesn't like it because he has no sense of humor. China's policy on violence. They say it's a peaceful nation. Well, go onto Twitter and you can countlessly every day see the police and the lower forms of police trying to dismantle food markets because they're illegal or they don't pay the police enough money. Claims of a collapse. Okay, I will give you that one. Use the word genocide. Okay, clue number 5 there. Genocide, we all know, is happening in the Xinjiang province. There's been lots of claims, there's been lots of proof, there's been lots of people who've said about their brothers and sisters, aunties and uncles locked up there. And sometimes the genocide word does exist. Call other people a Wumao is number 7. Well, I know some other shills in China who do call themselves Wumao, so you call it themselves. The list goes on. Another culprit here who does get paid by the CCP, yes, I did say CCP people, is Mr. Jerry Good. Here's some of his tweets. The US and NATO started in Ukraine against the Russians. No, they didn't. Come on, look at the history, my friend. China's economy is rock solid. People are thriving over here. I will show you a different point of view towards the end. The US is not a democracy. Go and look up the word democracy in the dictionary. So basically, the Chinese government spend an absolute fortune on just misinformation, and they put this on Western media. But how come we can't put, let's say, our misinformation on their social media? We can't. It will get blocked. It will be banned. There we go. So, Jerry, democracy. This is another guy. I can't remember his name, but I did find out some information about him on the China show. An American guy who set up and was in charge, or near enough in charge, of a big communist party in America, didn't like where he was going, so he went to China to make China more communist. And a guy that I have shown before is Jerry's Take on China. A British gentleman, I think he was a policeman before, he has cycled around all of China. Okay, fantastic. But more recently, he's doing the softy approach to, the gentle approach to the misinformation. He does talk a lot, but what he doesn't show is the facts. Jerry, talk is cheap. You've got to show the information with it as well. And what you do is just read from a script. Obviously, you haven't prepared the script, and it's something that the writers would have prepared for you just to read out because you're really good at reading. Let me just show you a quick example of your reading, but zero evidence.
Going to meet her. She got married, had a son, and like all migrant workers, she wanted her family to stay together. Unfortunately, for many of them, that wasn't possible. The requirements of schooling and the hukou system, which is a household registration. That means that children go to school for free where they've been registered, but need to pay if they went elsewhere. So most migrant workers' kids stay home. It's a tough decision. Stay and earn money, but be separated.
And another guy who works for a newspaper called Shanghai Daily, a New Zealand guy, possibly couldn't get any other journalist job outside of China, just constantly bombards the West and saying China is good and the evil Americans are bad, and will always manipulate, again, reading a script, not his own words like I'm doing now. There's no script in front of me. If you don't believe me, look, nothing, just a blank TV there. Unlike these guys who just near enough read a pre-written script for them. He just hates everything about the West, and it's just one-sided. And I believe, like a journalist, a news report should be objective. He's definitely not objective, he's very subjective.
大家好，欢迎回到外媒看中国，我是安博然。The Western media is a flutter about China again. No, they're not heralding Beijing for its plan for peace in Ukraine. They're busy promoting a report that blames the COVID pandemic on China again. Unsurprisingly, with zero evidence
And look at this article here, workers' condition in China and USA. Let's just read the China one. Let's get up close to this. A standard full-time working hours should be no more than 8 hours a day, whereas part-time workers are required to work 4 hours a day during the day. Now, if we go to the next slide, you may have heard of something called 996. 996 is a really common expression in China where it means 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. You can even Google it here. So it's obviously not an 8-hour day. And people actually do these 12-hour days because the labor laws are not tight enough, even though you do have the International Labor Committee there in Shanghai and in Hong Kong. But it doesn't, and they are scared because if you don't do the 12 hours, then your employees would actually say, or your employer would say, goodbye, find another job. Now, you want to see the development of China through the housing industry? Here's an article I saw on Sky News that I would like to share with you.
Not long ago, this entire area was farmland. Now, it's a case study for how cruel the Chinese housing boom can be. Many here struck a deal with a developer, their land in exchange for new homes in the high-rises sprouting up. 8 years later, the homes aren't finished, the people here still stranded. There is still a thriving community in the village of Dawangjong, but it exists in the shadows of what they were promised. Some, including the elderly, have shelter in this temporary accommodation. It's here we meet Wang Feng and her mother. Their old house is long demolished. She's now searching for work and struggling to get by. She needs the home she's owed.
Wow. So it's a really long time.
所以等的时间还挺长的。
啊，反正还不知道还会等几年。那反正是就这样慢等吧。那开发商他们现在不是都没钱，那不是房都盖不起来，那肯定着急呀。你要出去租房，你是不是还得1年给人家多少钱呢？因为我属于是单亲家庭，我领着孩领着俩老了。
She showed us inside the small space her mother now lives. It's damp and full of rats, she explains, significantly worse than what they gave up.
租人家房还不成住着自己房？你们俩说，像咱这种越改造越穷。
Outside, the remnants of ripped-up lives are everywhere. Across China, developers have come close to collapse, leaving people to pick up the pieces. Many, like this old lady, now face soaring rent as they wait. She didn't have these outgoings before her home was demolished. Now she has to litter pick to make ends meet.
那你不挣个钱，孙子啥的，你还得吃喝的呀，再改不成了。你说这， 这你光俺那6、7口人租房也可来劲儿啊！至少也咱没有过路费，啥都没有，也没生活费，啥都没有。
The government has intervened with a huge financial package to help restart suspended activity. But many, here and elsewhere, believe just a few workers are sent to keep up appearances. We saw just a handful. There are the most striking signs all over this city of just how flawed the relentless model of borrowing and building can be. Look here, the money has simply run out. And the reality is that the Chinese housing market, for so long a driver of growth, is now a real liability. But unbelievably, people are still investing, such is the obsession with property here. This man works for a developer building another block just round the corner. He didn't want to show his face.
还好，我个人觉得啊，这个之前这个开发商很多这个出问题，可能跟这个融资环境收紧，就是这个融资环境就是从这个去年开始吧，已经放松了。
That relaxing will ease the short-term pain, but in the long term, it makes boom and bust more likely. There is a systemic problem here, and it's people who are paying for it. Helen Ann Smith, Sky News, in Zhengzhou.
And surprisingly, ghost cities are still being built in China, and no one lives in these undeveloped cities, apart from some of the people that we showed a little bit earlier on the Sky News report. It's very weird what's going on. There's some kind of backhanded corruption. Of course, the shills and the propagandists and the misinformationists wouldn't cover this subject. They would just talk about the beauty of the glorious Communist Party. Yes, the CCP, not the CPC. The other thing with that is, if you translate the title of the Communist Party of China, if it was Chinese, into English, it would come up as CPC. But the government has used it for such a long time, everyone uses it. If we used it 40 years ago, we would be calling it CPC, not CCP. But it's only changed quite recently. But lots of people who live in China who get paid by the government say it's now called CPC. Again, manipulating you to go to Google and typing in that compared to CCP. Just try it. Go to Google and try it yourself. Yes, it's a little bit of a rant and a rave, and I just wanted to get the word out there. And if you want to continue spreading the right word, the correct word, the democratic word, the free world word, it's not the perfect world we live in. There's always two sides to the story. China just only has one side. Some of the journalists in others, yes, they do one side. I like to keep an open book. My name is James. This is Buzz, Buzz, Buzz. Thank you very much.